Nestled on the banks of the Ohio River in southwestern Ohio lies a mighty city. Many know it for its famous chili, or as the Flying Pigs, or the Queen City. This is Cincinnati, and its downtown retail as it was and is today. Downtown Cincinnati sits on the Ohio and Kentucky border. Heading across any number of the bridges into Kentucky will give you a spectacular view of the skyline. The Cincinnati metro area only has around 2 million people living in it. Now, because Dayton is so close, the two metro areas kind of run together, so if you want to include the Dayton metro area, then you can bump it up closer to 3 million. But today's episode is going to focus on the retail and architectural history of downtown Cincinnati. Many people that visit Cincinnati coming in from the Kentucky side often comment how large the skyline looks, but it's very deceiving because Cincinnati really isn't that big of a city in the scheme of things. This is the Cincinnati Bell Connector streetcar. It opened on September 9th of 2016 and operates on a 3.6-mile loop in downtown. It's almost hard to believe that Macy's would have their headquarters in downtown Cincinnati, and yes, downtown Cincinnati and not New York City. When I first moved to Cincinnati and I saw the building, I thought maybe it was just a very large Macy's store, but the Macy's store wasn't even in this building. Sadly, in 2020, the Macy's headquarters in downtown would close, and they would relocate most of their operations out into the suburbs to Mason and Springdale. This was always a real cool building architecturally. I always loved how it added to the skyline, and I often wonder what they're going to do with such a large building now that it's completely vacant. Taking a visit to downtown Cincinnati today, you'd never expect that this used to be a bustling retail destination. This is the Saks Fifth Avenue in downtown Cincinnati at Fountain Square, and you would never expect to see this here, at least in downtown Cincinnati, because Saks Fifth Avenue is a very rare sight to see. It's very upscale and very expensive. And it's kind of shocking that Cincinnati can actually support a store of this scale. I found a news article from 2013 that said the Saks Fifth Avenue was going to be leaving downtown Cincinnati and opening a new store at the Kenwood Collection. Obviously, this didn't happen because it's 2021 and the store is still there. Although this store is too pricey for most, I'd rather have the option to shop downtown. It's just a completely different vibe and I love it. And don't get me wrong, I do love shopping at the mall, but just being able to go downtown is just a whole different thing. If you want me to film a tour of this store, then leave a comment down below and give the video a like. If I get enough, I'll definitely go back and film the inside of the store. I'm not quite sure what they were building here next to the Saks Fifth Avenue. Hopefully it's something good, but I'm not really sure. I haven't been back since I filmed this to check it out. But more than likely with the track record of how things go, it's probably nothing exciting. Welcome to the Chalidos department store in downtown Cincinnati. Chalidos was a dry goods store that began in 1830. It was originally located on 4th Street in downtown Cincinnati until in 1878 it would move into a new spacious emporium. The new store at 7th and Race Street would be touted as the dry goods palace of the world. This enormous store was designed by James W. McLaughlin and would feature a large octagonal skylight, grand staircase, and atrium. In 1937, the building would be renovated and turned into the Art Deco style you're looking at today. The Chalidos department store would continue to operate under the Chalidos name until 1982 when it would merge with Dayton-based Reich's, shortly after becoming Lazarus in 1986. This landmark department store would continue to operate until 1997 when the Lazarus would move to Fountain Place. The new location would later become a Macy's, and that Macy's would then close in 2018. The old Chalidos department store has been preserved and is now being used as the Chalido Lofts. Most American cities of the early 1900s would construct at least one large skyscraper containing offices in the top and retail in the bottom, and this was no exception for downtown Cincinnati and the Carew Tower. Out of all the buildings I've visited in downtown Cincinnati, this is definitely the most opulent. Just take a look at the amazing Art Deco lights that have been preserved on the exterior of this building. You just don't see quality architecture like this being built today. Everything today is built as cheaply as possible with no style, no architectural difference. It's all bland and boring. And yes, this building and everything attached to it is listed as a National Historic Landmark. Unless you're visiting a really large city like New York City, Chicago, or LA, you mostly find upscale clothing stores in downtowns, if any at all. So the thought of being able to hit up most downtowns and find a store like H&M that has affordable and appealing clothing to the masses is mostly more than a pipe dream. You're mostly only going to find stuff that appeals to the ultra-rich or businessman. Although the Carew Tower's glory days have faded, there's still a fair number of retail tenants inside. The Carew Tower stands at 574 feet and has 49 stories. This Art Deco building was completed in 1930 and is in the heart of downtown Cincinnati overlooking the Ohio River. This is Cincinnati's second tallest building and is named after Joseph T. Carew of the Mabley and Carew department store chain, which was founded in 1877. When the tower was complete, it cost an eye-watering $33 million, had a floor area space of 1,377,780 square feet, and featured 14 lift elevators. Having grown up in the Detroit metro area with all of its Art Deco buildings, I can definitely say I really appreciate this architecture. It is just breathtaking. You just sort of want to stop and stare at it for like the longest time and just be like, I wish things could be this nice now. Sadly, I don't think anything this nice will ever be built again. So pay attention to the craftsmanship and all the detail in this building as we take a tour of its inside. The fact that this building was even built is a miracle in itself, because construction began in September of 1929, just 1 month before the stock market crash and the Great Depression. What you're looking at here is locally sourced inlaid rockwood pottery floor tiles. This is definitely one of the most amazing features of this building. The Carew Tower is home to the Hilton Cincinnati Netherland Plaza Court Hotel. Entering the hotel from the Carew Tower, you'll see all of this amazing marble work all over the walls and the staircase. It's just absolutely amazing. If you're ever in Cincinnati and you get a chance to visit the Carew Tower, I highly recommend that you do pop into the hotel and take a look at some of the architecture because it's definitely unique and it's something you don't want to miss. This hotel has been at the Carew Tower ever since it opened in the 1930s. The tower was also home to the Mabley and Carew department store from the 1930s until the 1960s. Sadly, the tower has lost most of its retail and doesn't contain a formal department store. But thankfully, all of the amazing Art Deco architecture still remains.
Life's a coat of many colors. It is never black and white. Can't have one without the other. The dark without the light. In the summer we were lovers. With the flame our hearts would burn. A flame the autumn would smother and leave this heart to yearn forever blue, forever blue. I'm putting on a show for the world to see.
This is the I Love Cincinnati store. It's a store that's focused around anything relating to Cincinnati and the general area. But I found this store was mostly sports related, and that was kind of disappointing because in Detroit we have a thing that's called the Detroit Shops, and they focus more on the history of Detroit and all kinds of things relating to Detroit, as well as a little bit of sports. But it is really cool to get to see a store that's focused on your local area and, places where you can buy things that say Cincinnati or your local sports teams. As of 2020, when I filmed this, the store was still there. I have no clue if it's still there today, so maybe if someone's visited more recently, you can leave a comment down below. Now, this store was closed the day that I visited, but do people really actually need a place specifically for back rubs? I guess maybe this was just, a general massage store. It was just kind of interesting to see it so specifically labeled. Now, this is a very appropriate store for all the business people that work in downtown Cincinnati. It's a store completely for them where you can get all kinds of fancy stationery and pens and just anything office related, and that's a great idea. While visiting the tower, don't forget to take a ride all the way up to the observation deck where you'll be treated to amazing panoramic views of the Cincinnati skyline. Seeing such a low-end food establishment in such a high-end and classy building is super jarring. At one time, this was probably a fancy jewelry store or clothier, but the only thing on display nowadays is this really weird subway display. So now we're going to take a look at what I'm calling the basement. And I'm calling this the basement because from the main level you descend down a flight of stairs and it feels like you're in the basement. Whether it really is a basement or not, I don't know. But one thing I do know is you don't want to miss this part of the building when you visit. Down here you'll be able to learn more about the history of the building and see all the amazing architecture. Take a look around and notice that just about everything from floor to ceiling is marble. This is also where you'll find the valet for the Hilton Hotel as well as the express elevators. Our time here at the Carew Tower is almost up, but we do have one special place to show you that you wouldn't expect to find in this tower. And here's a look at the current big boy statue that sits, rather, I was going to say outside, but this one unusually sits inside because most of them are outside the restaurants. But nope, this one's inside. Welcome to Frisch's Big Boy in downtown Cincinnati, in the Carew Tower. Here you can see they have this big wall with some old photographs of what Big Boy used to look like back in the day. Here you can see this is a look at the history of the Big Boy character statue that sits outside most Big Boy restaurants. And it's right above the buffet. And I can say it is a very nice buffet. The food in it is great. All right, you guys, I'm in downtown Cincinnati at the Carew Tower, and I'm at the Big Boy. And it's a Frisch's Big Boy because here in Cincinnati we have the Frisch's brand. And I got my cherry Coke and my sippy sippy. And this is a very special Frisch's Big Boy because here, if you take a look at the menu, this is how their menu looks. Not the traditional bifold kind of thing. This is like a paper thing. And I don't know if it looks like it's the full entire menu that you would get at the normal Frisch's Big Boys out in the suburbs. But then again, normally they give you that trifold kind of thing, but pretty neat. And then we're going to go back and check out the lunch buffet in a few minutes because it's got some cool Big Boy history above it. And I don't know if this is staying in focus or not. But, yeah. Oh, something also cool to note. The hostess came and grabbed two guests that walked in. And as they walked to the table, she brought them by the lunch buffet and gave them a little tour of it. That's pretty cool and unique. One thing that many of Cincinnati's downtown buildings share in common is the Skywalk. These skywalks link many of Cincinnati's buildings together so that way you don't have to walk out in the elements. And I think this is a really cool idea. In fact, it makes it feel more like you're kind of in a mall. And yes, the glory days of Cincinnati's downtown shopping may have faded long ago, but it's still cool to get to explore all of these walkways and go in between the different buildings and look at all the architecture. Many of these opulent buildings that once housed Cincinnati's best shopping are now reduced to just office buildings. So come take a walk with me as we explore all the different skywalks that connect all the buildings in downtown Cincinnati. Our first skywalk leads from the Carew Tower over to the U.S. Bank Tower, which houses the Westin Hotel. While crossing any one of the skyways, you'll get a really cool view of the area. This is the U.S. Bank Tower. Construction would begin in 1979 and be completed in 1981. The building's exterior is constructed of solid granite panels with 1,789 windows weighing in at 161 tons. At one point in time, the lower level atrium had an abundance of retail, but today, mostly all of that is gone. But I do recommend that you stop in and check out the architecture of this building because it is really cool. Connected to the U.S. Bank Tower is the Mercantile Center. The Mercantile Center is comprised of many distinct parts. This is a 15-story modern office building on East 4th Street. First, there's the Mercantile Library building, which is an exquisitely preserved 11-story 19th century office building and is home to the revered Mercantile Library, where you have to have memberships in order to go inside. Then there's the Mercantile Way Arcade, which you're about to see here. This is a very bright and open retail arcade which connects the 5th and 4th Streets and offers convenience such as restaurants, delis, coffee shops, fine wines, liqueurs, and more. I think the architecture in here was really cool. I love the abundance of light from the giant skylight above and all the round porthole windows. It was just really cool architectural-wise. However, when I visited, I didn't see much activity in this building, nor did I see very many retail shops or restaurants or anything similar to that. But the building's website does state that they have those things in the arcade, so I don't know. This is where the amazing Macy's used to be in downtown Cincinnati. I can remember a few times going in this department store and being like, wow, it's not the most fancy or opulent store, but just being able to shop in a department store in a downtown is absolutely amazing. And not have to be in, New York City or Chicago or LA or one of those big expensive cities where who can afford to live there? This building also housed the very expensive and overpriced Tiffany & Company jewelry store. And outside of the one that was in Michigan, I don't think I've ever seen another Tiffany & Company jewelry store. And yeah, of course, Cincinnati can't support a jewelry store of this magnitude. The Macy's would sadly close around 2018, and unfortunately, I didn't document it. I don't remember ever seeing this bookstore or going inside, but whoever put this sign on the door was either being super sarcastic or they're really glad to see this store close. Whatever the case is, I don't think a smiley face is an appropriate thing to put on a sign that says, "Today is our last day, we're permanently closing." This is the fountain place where the Macy's used to be, and when I visited, they were tearing it up and redoing it. And even later on, I've come back and, driven through the area, and the whole place was completely gutted the last time I drove by it. As of 2020, the plans are to turn this place into a mix of retail, office space, and apartments. Of course, you know how that goes. There'll be very little attention to the retail aspect of the building, and most of it'll just be office space or apartments. One can hope that they'll at least put some amount of retail in here, or maybe even some restaurants, because it's situated across the street from the Fountain Square, which is a very busy area that attracts all kinds of people. Business people, just people coming downtown just to kind of, chill and whatnot. So we're going to take a look at this bookstore. I mean, it was its last day, so it was really hard to get a feeling for whether this was a great bookstore or whether it was a terrible bookstore. I mean, there was hardly anything left, but it looked like it might have been a nice bookstore. This is the Booksellers on Fountain Square as we bid it a farewell. Now we're going to take a look at the Orchids at Palm Court. This is located inside the historic Hilton Cincinnati Netherland Plaza Hotel. This is Ohio's only AAA 5-diamond restaurant. So if you have a very large bank account, this may be just the place for you where you can wine and dine with the ultra-rich. We're going to step inside and take a look at the lobby of the place. I didn't go fully all the way into the restaurant because I didn't want to have people telling me, oh, you can't be here and all that kind of crap. I just didn't feel like dealing with it. But you can get a taste of what some of the architecture is like in this place just by sort of looking around the entrance and the lobby. And if you want to step back in time to when the Art Deco style was at full steam ahead, then this is the place for you. It's been a long day of shopping and sightseeing, so you've decided to come down to the small Riverfront Park for some rest and relaxation. This is where downtown Cincinnati connects back with nature. In 2019, Cincinnati was chosen as one of the cities to host the traveling Ferris wheel known as the SkyStar. This Ferris wheel stands at 150 feet tall and was located at the entrance to the small Riverfront Park, giving guests and riders amazing panoramic views of the area. This Ferris wheel was actually so popular that when it was time for it to leave, they actually extended it to stay longer. And even crazier than that, the entire time that the Ferris wheel was here, there were talks about building a bigger and better one across the river in Newport at Newport on the Levee. And it doesn't stop there, because why have one Ferris wheel when you can have two Ferris wheels? So the city of Cincinnati and Hamilton County wanted to build a bigger and better one in the exact location of the SkyStar. But we all know how these super lofty ideas turn out. I think it would have been a brilliant idea to attract tourism to the city. Most people were in favor of it. And then, of course, you had the train wreck that was 2020 and the coronavirus pandemic, and everything was canceled. As of July 2021, there's been no talk about further plans of developing a Ferris wheel or building one. It's just sort of dead, and I don't think we'll ever see one. And that's really sad because many cities like Atlanta and, various other metro areas around the country have built successful Ferris wheels, and they now operate permanently. In fact, if you take a look at Asian markets, pretty much all of their cities boast a Ferris wheel on the skyline. The last thing on our tour of the retail and architecture of downtown Cincinnati is the Roebling Suspension Bridge. You just can't ignore this marvel of engineering when visiting downtown Cincinnati. This is the John A. Roebling Suspension Bridge that connects Covington, Kentucky and the city of Cincinnati, Ohio. It would open to traffic on January 1st of 1867. The bridge consists of a central span of 1,057 feet, and at the time of its construction was the longest in the world. The story of this bridge started when John A. Roebling was spending time in New York and at his home in New Jersey, vigorously planning for his next proposed project. This would be a bridge over the East River connecting New York City and Brooklyn, New York, now known as the Brooklyn Bridge. Back over in Covington, Kentucky, John's son had been working on a bridge project of his own. And this is how John A. Roebling would become involved in this bridge construction. This is the sister bridge to the Brooklyn Bridge in New York, sharing much of its design and construction materials. The bridge is also known as the Singing Bridge for the distinctive sound that the cars make as they travel across the bridge's steel plate roadbed. The bridge is registered as a National Historic Landmark and is definitely something you need to go and see while visiting Cincinnati. Whether you live in Cincinnati or are just here for a visit, Cincinnati is definitely a gem sitting on the mighty banks of the Ohio River, and downtown Cincinnati is definitely worth a visit. Because you never know what history you may uncover while visiting downtown Cincinnati.